Hello everyone, I'm Coy Wire and welcome to a special edition of CNN 10. You likely don't know this, but the program you're watching right now started all the way back in 1989 when CNN launched a news program designed for the classroom. And today, we're going to look back at one of the most influential stories from that year. It involves protests in China's Tiananmen Square that changed the course of history. Tiananmen Square is located in the center of the Chinese capital of Beijing. In 1989, after several weeks of demonstrations by students and other citizens calling for a more democratic government, Chinese troops entered the square on June 4th and fired on civilians. It's estimated that several hundred to thousands were killed, and as many as 10,000 people were arrested. Accounts of the massacre are still censored in China today. We now have a special report on CNN's coverage from on the ground that year. And as you'll see, after the Chinese government pulled the plug on the broadcast, CNN had to report by telephone and use video that was snuck out of the country.
"15 years ago, China was still almost totally isolated from the rest of the world. Today, the encouragement of private enterprise, free markets, foreign investment, the introduction of Western products and ideas has made this country the pioneer in the communist world's search for reform. But now, China's reform program has run into trouble.
Inflation officially has been at the 20% level in recent months. Corruption has grown a great deal.
These dislocations, caused by an economy that is only half reformed, neither communist nor capitalist, have generated widespread public discontent. In the dead of night, 2,000 students marched through the streets of Beijing, calling for democracy, human rights, and the resignation of the Chinese government. Their destination, Tiananmen Square in the city center. It was here that the students placed a huge banner honoring the memory of Hu Yaobang, who died on Saturday in political disgrace, purged by Communist Party hardliners 2.5 years ago for his liberal views. To the students, however, Hu represented hope for reform and change, hopes that, to many Chinese, have been dashed by recent government efforts to scale back economic and political liberalization. There has never been a challenge to the leadership of Communist China like this one. In cities all across the country, crowds taking to the streets to demand democracy and freedom. In commemorating Hu's death by demanding the implementation of the progressive policies he advocated, the students have put the government on the defensive, most notably by using tactics such as the peaceful sit-in that the authorities here have never seen. The students got a big boost when several official Chinese newspapers defied government orders and published accurate accounts of the events of the past week.
If you're going to have a student movement, you must seek support from the workers and peasants. Only if they understand can we succeed.
Again and again, the badly outnumbered police were overwhelmed and pushed aside. This was the demonstrators' destination, Tiananmen Square, the heart of Beijing, the seat of the government. The scene at Tiananmen showed the depth of public discontent here now, over inflation, corruption, and the lack of political freedom. On the eve of Mikhail Gorbachev's visit, China's rebellious students upped the stakes in their confrontation with the government, adopting a new set of tactics to force a faster pace of reform. 200 students started a hunger strike, marching through Beijing to downtown Tiananmen Square, vowing to stay without food until the authorities agreed to recognize their illegal Students' Federation. With Mikhail Gorbachev, the Soviet Union's pioneer of political reform, due here on Monday, no one in the Chinese leadership wants him to have a reception like this. This is now the third day in which about 1,000 students have been carrying out a hunger strike to press their demands for democracy.
Gorbachev's reforms have been extremely successful, so we hope his visit will help accelerate political reform in China.
A growing number of those in the square are not students, but journalists, professional people, and especially workers impatient for change. For China's leaders, there could not be a more embarrassing or frightening set of circumstances.
Now some thoughts. I came to cover a summit. I walked into a revolution. A massively peaceful statement by the people, but still a revolution.
Huge crowds again surged through the center of Beijing. People from all walks of life, workers, taxi drivers, shopkeepers, even some peasants from the countryside, all lending their support to the hunger strikers' demand for freedom and democracy. At the same time, over 100,000 people demonstrated in Shanghai, where 300 students had begun their own hunger strike.
批评我们啊，都是应该的啊。我这次来也不是请你们来原谅我们的啊，不是的。
Communist Party Chief Zhao and Premier Li visiting Tiananmen Square to appeal for an end to the student hunger strike. Late in the evening, Premier Li appeared on nationwide television to announce that the situation was out of control and that the army was being called in to restore order.
The situation in Beijing is getting worse, and it is going to bring out a nationwide riot if we don't really do anything to stop this situation.
Communist Party Chief Zhao, a liberal who had sympathized with the students, he had been forced to resign.
There is word authorities decided he had to go because he refused to agree to use force against the students.
For a month, the government has taken very calm and tolerant attitude towards the students' demonstration. We did this because we love our students.
Masses of demonstrators marched out of Beijing and rode in cars to the west. Before dawn, more than 100,000 were on the outskirts of the city, taking the confrontation to the troops, not waiting for the army to reach town.
The People's Liberation Army, blocked by the people. The troops cannot move to clear Tiananmen Square.
This is CNN's Prime News, and in Beijing, Bernard Shaw.
Let's go quickly to Jeannie Mose in Tiananmen Square. Jeannie?
Bernie, we don't have any real hard information down here. The same announcement keeps coming over the PA system. It's an official announcement signed by the Premier of China, according to the announcer, and it talks about martial law being imposed. Here in Tiananmen Square, it was a night of tension, a daybreak of celebration, a morning of uncertainty. Yes, Bernie.
I'm being told that the government officials are coming into the CNN control room now. This man with a piece of paper in his hand, I'm certain that is not a party invitation. Okay, let me quickly tell you what this official is saying. If you do not obey the order, you will not be allowed to come in. This official on the right side of your screen is saying to CNN, if you do not obey the order.
Right here, 500-4100.
You have him call us. You have him call us personally and explain to us what is happening here.
If you cannot give us an explanation, fine.
We're told that President George Herbert Walker Bush is watching what's happening. President Bush is saying, quote, word of the news blackout is very disturbing.
Our government let me to tell you, now stop your transmission.
These characters being written on this legal pad, in effect, are saying that this government is telling CNN to end its transmission.